let's talk about resistance a little bit. Phosphine resistance. And there are 4 main bad actors out there that we're working with. And we're finding a couple of those in the Midwest area. Of course, worldwide, we've got lesser grain borer, Rhizopertha. It's got double alleles. It's kind of a tricker, a magician to be able to do the genetics to tolerate and to resist phosphine. We see that big out in the Middle West and out in California. Rusty grain beetle. Boy, we've got a lot of rusty grain beetle around this area, and they are very difficult to work with. We are seeing resistance. China, the highest resistance in the world right now is is the rusty grain beetle or Cryptolestes group right here. Live in moldy areas, can tolerate harsh environments. They already are maybe anaerobic in some parts of their life, so why not be anaerobic to a fumigate? Red flower beetle has some resistance. We're seeing 89% resistance in some parts of Kansas and Oklahoma, and rice weevil here has resistance worldwide. India, it's fixed to the point where it's so much you can't raise the concentration to kill it. One of the things that we're looking at is a test that we do. Again, this is something that we do if we have insect samples. We pull them out, we take a look at it prior to the fumigation if possible, and then we test to see what level of resistance are in there. So you take a look at where it's actually located on there, and the scientists said if you go from Bangkok to Sydney and you made a long chain to find out which of those DNA segments are resistant would be like being able to find like a golf ball that are stacked up from that distance to the next. So I mean these geneticists are really top-notch people out there doing work. But it is linked genetically. There is a proposal out right now to have an international group of resistance, phosphine resistance, and this group then would accumulate insects from all over the world, send them in, there'll be a fee involved, and you'll be able to take those insects and then put a pin on the map to say where is the resistance throughout the world. So if you're sending, let's say, grain from here to the other side of the world, then you're passing those insects and their genes over, and vice versa. When they're sending over their chocolate or their coffee beans over to us, they're passing those genetic markers over to us too. So it's not a bad idea, and I think the Australians will be the ones that will organize this. There's a group out of Brisbane, very, very good scientists on phosphine. I always tell them that Australia caused the original phosphine 30 years ago. It was Saraflow of low levels of phosphine over a long period of time. And now, since that moment that they started that, they have seen increased activity. Now, 30 years later, they have some really problems. At one point, 80% of the exports in Australia was grain, and you can imagine how important grain would be in resistant insects. And they have nil tolerance, just like Canada. Means they can't have insects in their grain. So I think that there are some things that we can do to manage the phosphine resistance. There are some tests. We can increase the dosage rate, and we can rotate to an alternative chemical out there. Now, maybe it's a recommendation of not using phosphine at all, but maybe it's one of being able to alter that. So here are some things that I think, if we go to Profume over phosphine in a grain bin, you're talking about a 7x increase in price. So is that economical? Is that viable? I don't know. But if phosphine's not working, we do have an alternative with sulfur fluoride. And Dow is working in Australia on that right now. So to summarize the area of the resistance here, we have some insects have developed a genetic resistance. Number 2, phosphine fumigant resistance has increased in both frequency and strength. We find resistance in Michigan. We have had some pasta that came from Italy to Montreal. Montreal, they couldn't kill it with 2 fumigations of phosphine. They sent it down to us. So you're getting some of those insects from different parts of the world.